Hello there, I'm Fintusius, and with the Shadowlands patch 905 now live, which is bringing us back the return of Valor points amongst other things, but the main course does not stop here as over the duration of the public test realm, Blizzard has added quite a few balance changes to a lot of classes, legendaries and covenant abilities. Some of them even got reworked completely, so it would appear that they're having a hard time with balancing them, which might sadly lead to some of you changing covenants if you're looking for the next best thing for your class and or spec. Over the past week, I've spent some time testing things out on the PTR based on different tuning and balance changes which, sadly as usual, were definitely made without considering their possible outcome in PvP, as none of those have been nerfed in PvP with the exception of the warrior legendary known as the Exploiter, thanks to a massive community outcry as it would have been game breaking due to warriors already dominating the Shadowlands PvP Season 1. Having said that, some of the things I'll be showcasing here are almost certainly going to get nerfed at some point, as they are in fact absolutely ridiculous at times, so I'm here to give you a heads up on what you should be looking out for in PvP in this next patch. Before we start, if you want to see me do more WoW PvP content, make sure to hit that like button as it actually helps me out a lot. At number 10, I've placed Necrolord's Affliction Warlocks. While Warlocks are getting their demon armor buffed, which is definitely going to be a welcome change for all Warlocks players that are tired of being tunneled by warriors and windwalkers alike, what I'll be showcasing here is the buffed combination of both their Malefic Wrath legendary and Necrolord ability, which will result in a gigantic drained soul that can kill a target in just one cast. The reason is this low on the list is because it's going to be pretty difficult to pull off as it requires a lot of setup. However, you can probably kill some folks in raid or battlegrounds or with the help of a Holy Paladin's concentration aura and Blessing of Protection. TLDR, watch out for potential drain souls. At number 9, we have Arcane Mage's legendary known as Arcane Harmony that has been buffed to a level of being able to do an Arcane Barrage fully loaded up for about a 25k if it crits. With it being an instant cast and Arcane having some instant bursts at the disposal, they will be able to dish out up to 40 to 50,000 damage in a 3-second window. Having said that, Arcane will probably remain inferior to the other two mage specs, as this also makes you unable to play the Treon Ward legendary, which is a popular choice amongst mages. At number 8, we have the Enhancement Shaman's buffed up Lava Lash and Fire build, which is a combination of a flat 40% buff to Lava Lash, the Primal Lava legendary, the Magma Fist conduit, and the Hot Hand talent. As long as you flame shock 2 to 3 targets and the talent procs. If you pair it with a Bloodlust PvP talent, you'll be hitting 15k Lava Lashes crits every second with a 50% chance of them being a crit thanks to gear and the conduit. This is going to be a superb sustained DPS build, but the reason it's not higher on the list is due to the fact that the build benefits from a lot of mastery, while most shamans at the moment do not have any of it, alongside the legendary of choice and main reason of being powerful, Doom Winds, which still remains remarkable, so if anything, it offers a new possible build for the future or different comp setups. And by the way, if you were to stack mastery, then maybe the buff to Fate Transfusion paired with the Earthen Spike talent might see some spooky play too, but this means you'd lose Chain Harvest, which is a super strong and reliable ability that needs little to no setup. At number 7, I've placed Demon Hunters. While their current biggest weakness hasn't sadly been addressed, which is being pretty squishy, they've had their Unbound Chaos talent buffed significantly on top of a big buff to their Dark Lair Medallion legendary, which will allow for much more metamorphosis uptime. When you pair that with some nice Fel Rush burst thanks to that talent, DH's sustained DPS is going to be pretty high, but that would also require them to not play their current top legendary pick of Outer Darkness when you drop to low HP, so this puts Demon Hunter in an even more glass cannon position than before, but in the end, it might be worth it. At number 6, we have Fire Mages and a buff to 2 of their legendary powers. Disciplinary Command would allow you to have a much stronger combustion, as it will add 20% crit damage during a window of full crits thanks to combustion, while Sun King's Blessing would allow them to have a smaller combustion in between their real combustion, which might be quite devastating if used properly. Even though the power spike is much stronger than the Arcane legendary buff, Fire relies on their survivability through the Treon Ward legendary, which is going to be a glass cannon kind of trade-off if you decide to play without it, but surely you probably can make it work in the Caster Cleave Arena composition or some ranked battlegrounds fun. TLDR, observe mages in their buffs if they have multiple absorb shields, as if they don't, they might have, let's call it, 2 combustions. At number 5, I've placed Frost Mages and their Freezing Wind's legendary power that has been buffed once again to its beta version, which now grants Fingers of Frost every 2 seconds. This is going to strengthen the burst potential by quite a bit when using Frozen Orb. Back in beta and before Fire Mages got out of control, this was considered to be pretty strong and the best of all mage specs in PvP. Once again, this makes you unable to use the Treant Walled legendary. However, Frost Mages have a stronger defensive toolkit than Fire Mages, which means they might be able to pull this trade off more reliably than the other mage specs. At number 4 we have Red Paladins, and while the Divine Toll Conduit has been redesigned and its damage nerfed, making it no longer possible to watch Divine Toll one-shot clips, as the Judgment procs from the ability will now come with a 0.7 second delay between each other, a new contender has entered the field. Final Verdict has been buffed by quite a bit and can now lead to a massive single target hit, especially if paired with a Final Reckoning talent. After some testing, it is possible at the moment to do critical hits of up to 30k with one hit if you go for the big cooldown stacking. This legendary will also increase their sustained DPS, so they might not hit like wet noodles outside of their cooldown, so be mindful of that too. The reason it's not higher on the list is because of Red Paladins usually being a good target to kill. Most of them rely on the Reign of Endless Kings legendary to survive in arenas, so this once again is going to be an offense versus defense trade-off. TLDR, look out for Paladins if they're hitting you with Final Verdict as their spender, which has a noticeable different animation. If they do, this means they don't have the Prot legendary equipped and makes them vulnerable to, well, death. At number 3 we have Venthyr Hunters, and you can expect 2 variations of them to come out from this patch. Their Covenant ability has received quite a buff, which is going to allow Hunters to hit you with a random killshot procs which can hit for up to 20k, which is quite a high number as those killshots can happen more often than not. Their damage and burst spec will be pretty high, especially if used properly during CC chains. The variation 1 is going to be Venthyr Survival Hunters, as their Mastery Spirit bond should make them have stronger killshots than the other Hunter specs. The variation 2 is going to be Beast Mastery Hunters, as what wasn't known is that the PvP trinket bonus to versatility was not affecting their pets in PvP, which led them to have a lower DPS than intended, so that's going to be a big DPS increase. On top of that, if they decide to play without the Craven Stratagem legendary, which is the usual hunter choice, as their main weakness is being extremely squishy, their Bestial Wrath legendary power received a substantial buff which can result in extreme high burst DPS during their Bestial Wrath cooldown. TLDR, now is a good time as any to kill hunter pets. At number 2 we have Warriors because, well, they didn't receive any nerfs, which is going to make them still quite powerful. The Exploiter PvP change that was announced is only reverting into its pre-905 state, which is still quite good and something most Venthyr Warriors were already using. Outside of that, they received a buff to their Enduring Blow legendary, which can add even more DPS even though it was already extremely high, specifically to non-Venthyr Warriors, without any real downside trade-off to it, as Warriors have usually been playing offensive legendaries anyway, so they're going now to have even more options between the Exploiter, Unhinged, Enduring Blow, or maybe even the buffed Battle Lord. And yeah, some might even try out the Maldraxxus banner, as buffing your ally Frost DK, Ret, Boomkin or Fire Mage with 400 mastery can be quite devastating. TLDR, with the season lasting for at least 2 more months, now is a good time to level a warrior if you ever wanted to play one. This leads us to the final boss of the patch, which is going to be Venthyr Rogues, Subtlety or Assassination ones, and hopefully this is not going to stay in the game for a long time. Remember Shadowlands launch and how Subtlety Rogues were killing people in the first 2 seconds of a cheap shot every time? Well, guess who's back? The Venthyr Rogue Covenant ability, Flagellation, has been redesigned, by the way alongside the Maldraxxus one, into basically an ability that is going to work extremely well in PvP setups, as it's a lot of on-demand bursts without any RNG tied to it. Think of it as if Red Paladins high-rolled their Divine Toll Judgment every single time, which is, interesting. The strength of it comes from the redesigned Potency Conduit, which adds multiple hits that happen in the span of 1 GCD as the hit procs off combo points. I feel like this will inevitably get nerfed in PvP, but to what extent we do not know. If the nerf would be quite severe, this would make the redesigned Maldraxxus Covenant also a good option to pick, which, when you think about it, would be quite depressing for rogue players, as if they ever wanted to stay competitive in PvP, they've basically cycled through all 4 Covenants within the span of 1 season, which is exactly why players feared the Covenant system. But Blizzard assured them they'll try their best to balance them more or less equally. This should cover everything I found out during testing in the PTR in regards of possible PvP combos and builds. By the way, I coach Vero Arenas on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday and Friday from 4 to 7 Central European time, so if you'd be interested in checking out what I've started doing recently on Twitch, feel free to come by and say hi, and will surely make my day better and maybe even yours, as I'll be giving away 1 million gold to a random viewer once I manage to hit 1,000 followers. You can also like and share this video to spread PvP awareness, and maybe even subscribe for more upcoming WoW content, including PvP and Paladins on this channel. Goodbye.